going to go through a great session tonight. We have Wolfie here. He's a cinematographer. He's going to be going through distilling some of the best things that he's learned in his illustrious career. Wolfie's been came up through the ranks in the lighting department in the film world, lighting a lot of features, commercials, and music videos, and working with some of the best of the best, Michel Gaundry and Spike Jonze, and some amazing projects, including Christopher Nolan movies and Star Trek, and some really, really cool stuff. I will take this opportunity to say welcome, Wolfie. Thank you very much for joining us here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your spot. And yeah, I'm going to pass this on to you so you can maybe do a better job of introducing yourself briefly and just talk about some of the things that you've been through. But thank you for joining us, and thanks to everyone else for joining us too. Yeah,
my pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much. So that was a lovely intro. I've been working in Hollywood like 27 years, and you know, I've done a lot of green screen stuff over the years. I've done a lot of special effects shoots, and then I've done regular features, and then I also did a lot of beauty lighting. And then I also was, you know, I came up and like I gaffed for a long time, and that really drove home the techniques of lighting. And it's beautiful to see how the principles of lighting are always the same. You know, in the 90s, we had very different lighting instruments and power needs, but the quality of the lights were always in some sort of a box that is still the same box today, you know. And every few years, you know, you get new beauty lights, you get new lighting instruments that are more powerful, maybe have, you know, RGB is a new thing. You can always tell when a new lighting unit comes out because people just abuse it. And yeah, I think back to like music in the 80s, the synthesizer came out, and then all the bands just went nuts and overdid the synthesizer, you know. And then by the 90s, they toned it down, and synthesizers sat where they were appropriate, you know, and then the knowledge gets incorporated. You know, a few years ago, like 2 years ago, they had an ARRI Sky panel came out, and it was ARRI makes really high quality things. So their lights are really rugged, they're really well thought out. And, you know, RGB video lights had been kicking around for a while. And then the Sky Panel S60 put it all together, made it brighter than all the other ones, and it made it more reliable. It was built tough. And now all of a sudden, it was no longer $80 gel rolls to get various colors in front of a tungsten light or in front of an HMI. Now all that color is inside the S60. And it's punchy. It's a punchy, medium soft light. It's an LED, and it has a great throw. You can push it through modifiers like, you know, gels and that kind of thing. And now you see a lot of color in television shows. And, you know, you look at like 4 years ago, the amount of color versus now, you know, it's like, whoa, neon everywhere, you know, and it's all this new light. And that new light, you know, yeah, so I find that fascinating. I love lighting, and I love how the technology advances. And now one of the big advances in technology is Unreal Engine. You know, it's been a video game engine for a very long time, and it is really starting to be married into the filmmaker's process. And I've been, you know, invited to be a digital cinematographer at DNEG, which is a animation company in London. And we just finished our first short film, and that'll be coming out shortly. And it's one of the ways in which you can use Unreal Engine. And one of the things I did there was I worked with the animators who came from the two-dimensional world. Now they find themselves in Unreal Engine, and now they're having a 3D model, and they need to go in and light it like we would light a regular film set. And for me, that's incredibly exciting, because with Unreal, you have an unlimited lighting budget. I can do exactly what I want to do, where I want to put the light. I don't have to go to production and get 5 more condors to put 5 big lights overhead. I don't need to budget for cable. And it's been an amazing dream. You know, I really love working in Unreal Engine. So now you'll see Unreal showing up in a lot of different places. One of the places is animation. You're using it as an animation engine. It will deliver a 2D image, but you build it in 3D, and the director is able to move cameras, which you were never able to do in the traditional animation pipeline. Another place where you see Unreal Engine is, you know, like being pioneered by The Mandalorian. And the way Unreal Engine works there is the traditional green screen wall is being replaced with a video wall. And the video wall is running an Unreal Engine background, a cityscape, stars, houses. You'll see it used a lot with period pieces, you know, like, 1800s London. So you see the London cityscape. And the thing they're using Unreal Engine for in that is the parallax. So what'll happen is you'll have a physical camera, you have a physical actor, and then you'll have the wall. And the camera has a little barcode and it has a sensor. And above the stage, there'll be little marks. Sometimes they'll be on the floor. So as you move the camera knows where it is physically on the stage. That data goes into Unreal Engine. And then the background wall, which is a 2-dimensional video wall, has a 3D video engine running in Unreal Engine. And as you move the camera, trees in the background will parallax. Buildings will suddenly reveal more data. And the other huge advantage is the actors are on the set. They see the video wall. So it helps the actors get into it instead of just staring at a green screen and imagining they're on Tatooine. You know, they're there and there's the buildings. And the buildings are moving, you know, and behaving like it's there. So that's another really exciting place where we're going to see a huge increase in the quality of television and film being driven by Unreal Engine. So, yeah. And then, of course, there's the video games, you know, and video games are making as much money as film and television. So, you know, you see these two, you know, worlds are really coming together in a beautiful way. And yeah, Unreal has been very fortunate. They had an incredible win with a video game called Fortnite. And Fortnite has given them a lot of money, and they have turned around and they've put that money back into research and development and community outreach and building new tools for us that are coming down the pipeline for Unreal Engine 5. And the things that they're developing that are coming out for that, those are all very promising too. Those will really let us light an Unreal set like we would light a movie set. I think that's going to be a great thing for video games. It's going to be a great thing for sci-fi movies, which is one of my favorite genres. And yeah, so that's sort of an overview of why you're hearing about Unreal Engine a lot more these days, and why you're seeing training courses in it, and why so many filmmakers are suddenly being required to interact with Unreal Engine for the first time. Ed, do you have anything that you would like to add to that intro? Would you like to speak about like some of the things that we'll be doing in the course with Unreal?
Sure, yeah. This is a precursor to a longer versions Wolfie's kind of alluding to. Also more things to go through in a second. But yeah, the longer version of this, a couple of longer versions of this, which there's a 2-weekend workshop coming up with Wolfie as the lead, teaching us about cinematography, the principles of cinematography, going through lighting and camera, and really doing a deep dive into some of the things we're talking about right now. Another version of that, and we'll present these again in a bit, is the 8-week intensive, which is something which I lead. I've been in visual effects for 15 years, worked on some really cool movies. I'm just going to let somebody else in. Worked on some really cool things like The Lion King, and Jungle Book, and Jurassic World, and particularly some of the formative virtual production movies, like Lion King as a good example. And a lot of what's come in Unreal was forged in that research and development laboratory of a movie, which was The Lion King. The 8-week deep dive goes through a really intense 8 weeks of immersive learning experience, going from beginner or intermediate in Unreal, really teaching you absolutely how to make a movie using the Unreal Engine. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll talk a little bit more about the end. Not to get in the way of your talk today, Wolfie, but thanks for asking us to mention that. I also want to say about this session in particular. This is an interactive session, so there's a number of you on here on Zoom. If you feel free to stop and ask questions as they come up. If something comes up to you, we also have the chat here, so feel free to post in the chat. And if anyone's watching on Facebook Live, please feel free to also comment in there. We'll do our best to answer, but if you're in there, then arguably you may as well come and join us here. So that said, we'll give you a bit more detail about some of the courses that we're running to teach Unreal and cinematography and filmmaking in Unreal. But Wolfie, today is yours to impart some of your knowledge, and I'll hand it back to you at that point. But just wanted to say to everybody, please feel free to jump in and ask questions. This is a workshop and an interactive session, so if you have questions along the way, please feel free.
Sounds great. So one of the things I want to impart to people watching, the industry is absolutely hungry for Unreal Engine artists, riggers, lighting, all of that. It is exploded. And so many companies are looking for people to do that work. There's actually a great opportunity if you're looking to transition from some of the VFX jobs that have gone away over the last couple of 10 years when the VFX houses got hammered. It's really ready, and there's a new phase of work that's arrived, and it really is Unreal Engine. And if you're going to invest your time and money in any continuing education looking for work, I would definitely suggest Unreal Engine. The course of getting people up on their feet and getting them competent. And then companies are hiring people that just have a little bit of Unreal Engine experience, but enough where they've been properly trained, and then we'll work them into to jobs and just do on-the-job training as long as you're competent enough to be, And a lot of times people are coming at it who are ex-graphic artists or who have been in web design, but now they want to make a more stable kind of income and want to transition to something that's a little more artistic and a little more creative. So these are all the kind of things that we would teach these courses for. Now I'm teaching a course that will focus on 2 days. So the first day will focus on lighting. And then the second day, the second session a week later, will focus on cinematography, the camera movement, composition, how you choose lenses, what you want to set the cameras at, and all of that. And that applies to Unreal Engine. So there's ways that the cameras are modeled in Unreal Engine that still matter. If you're in video production, if you're going to be working with a video wall, or if you're working like I was with DNEG doing animation, they have the lenses modeled, and different lenses will widen or narrow the face of an object. And there's things about depth of field where you choose what sensor settings you put, what camera settings you put. So I'll be able to get you up to a comprehensive understanding of what to say if you find yourself as a cinematographer working with something like that. And if you're doing just other kind of work in Unreal Engine, I'm going to give you a process to approach lighting. We'll talk about like the emotions of lighting and how to approach it. And we'll teach you how to frame up. And if you will at least get you a glossary of terms, will get you understanding what's going on in the room. When you hear people talking about certain terms, you'll understand what the conversations are going to go. So what I'll do is, today's calls, I'll go over the session one. So for session one, for our lighting day, I've got a love letter to light and shadow, which is teaches you how to approach lighting with love. Like light is like love, like when you're running around your day, you might have, your significant other, and they're like a big light in your life. And then you have that person at the grocery store who's always just really sweet and says hi in a nice way and just really is friendly, and they're like a little 2K light. They just glow, and then, some lights are just gigantic, and they're all appropriate. And I like approaching lighting from that perspective, because these instruments that you're going to use are your beloved paints. You look at the Rembrandts and the masters, they would all have to grind up little pixels, little pieces of flour, and buy special paste and make their own colors and lovingly make these paintings and let it dry for a week before moving into other layers. So we're entering into a tradition of lighting that, we take from those grand masters some of the beauty of light and shadow, and they had a love for their pigment and for their art. So I suggest people, like, if you're gonna light, you've been given a creative outlet, and that's an honor. That in 2021 you're being employed as a creative artist. That's a beautiful thing. And when you're doing it in Unreal Engine, usually you're making a really good rate. So I approach the process with love and respect. And then I like to think of my lighting tools like I would think of my friends, right? Some people are gregarious, some people are moody, some people are very clinical. So approach your lighting units like you would, find their characteristics, think of them with real personality. And then when you go to light your set, you're using their personality, their characteristics to give you the emotional response that your lighting would want to create. Right? So we're going to go over the lighting instruments that we find on film sets. And I'm going to show you some of the types of lights, LEDs, HMIs, beauty lights, the breezy light, and I'll show you the characteristics. And then you can take that and we'll show you how to use Unreal Engine to create lighting units that have those kind of characteristics. The next thing I'm going to go over is some of the grip items that we use on film sets. And a lot of the other information out there really skips over the gripping. So on a film set, the electricians set up the lights, but the grips will come in and they set up the shadows. And they set up 20-foot by 20-foot white diffusers. They'll put up teasers that shape the light and have it only fall where they want it to. They'll use shadows to create buildings where there are no buildings on a green screen set, on a video wall set. So I'll make sure to include shadow in our lessons. They have very interesting characteristics, and they'll do things that will take your lighting from good to exceptional. And we'll show you how to set those kind of grip items up in Unreal Engine so that you can really do the work that you see on the screen. So and then we're going to go over a glossary of terms so that we all understand that, like, if you're on a film set, they call it a gaffer. If you're in Unreal Engine, it's a lighting or lighting rigger, lighting technician. So we'll go over what you'll hear on a film set and what you'll hear on Unreal Engine. So if you're coming at it from an Unreal Engine background, you'll be able to work on film sets and know what a director of photography will be asking of you. If you're a director of photography and you're working with your Unreal Engine team, you'll be able to use their nomenclature so that you can get the results that you want from your lighting setup. Then we're going to go over blocking, lighting, and shooting. The standard techniques for how you approach looking at a set, looking at what the set is going to call for. What does the script want from you? You look at where the people in the frame are going, and that will then tell you where you're going to need to put your lights, right? So, and then we're going to get into the lighting process. And the lighting process is really fun. It's where you get to finally start playing. And I'm going to give you a process of what the types of lights are as far as, and when I say types, now I'm not talking about instruments. I'm talking about, a key light, a fill light, a backlight, right? And a top light. And I'll show you how to approach turning the key lights on. And I will show you how to maneuver the light and play with it until you find just the right spot for what you want. And then we'll add in and do more of that. So that's going to be the lighting process. Then we're going to go into specialty lighting setups. So I'll talk specifically about working with video walls, and we'll give you some pointers if you have to interface with green screens, and we'll go from there. So, and then we're going to have a Q&A session. So you'll be able to, if you're having issues with a setup that you're doing, if you have questions on career moves, we'll be able to answer anything that you want. Ed knows a ton of people, and he knows a lot about the industry, especially considering Unreal. I know a lot about the film industry. So between the two of us as instructors, we'll be able to customize any questions you have and help you out in that phase. So that's going to be week 1. And then week 2 is going to be all things camera. So we'll start with how storytelling drives the camera, right? And then we're going to go into some of the types of cameras that you'll find on film sets. We'll go over what their advantages are and what some of their disadvantages are, so that if you're asked as a director of photography, which kind of camera should I use for this project, we'll let you know. And then we'll go into lenses, the subjective eye through which we peer. So we'll show you how lenses can affect your subject, right? We'll help you select the types of lenses and the types of distances from the object. A lot of people in Unreal Engine just stick with one lens and be like, oh, I'll just move it closer and forward. It shouldn't make any difference. And no, it makes a big difference, right? So, and then we're going to go into camera settings and how the camera creates depth. When you're working on the video walls, you want to have the background wall just out of focus enough where you don't see the pixels, but you want it in focus enough where you can read what's on the wall. So I'll teach you what that is, how to chase depth of field, and what settings will let you have it be narrow depth of field or a deeper depth of field. So then we're going to go into composition. And this is where we stop being so technical and we really start getting into the artistic. Composition's I love good composition. And there's a million ways to hunt down good composition. But we're going to teach you a process, and we're going to teach you some of the basics. And we're going to walk you through looking at some frames, and we're going to help you tie in the emotions that you're going to feel when you choose certain angles and framing. We're going to talk a lot about what I like to call structural language. Kind of structural language is a shorthand we use on sets for how objects speak to other objects in your composition, right? So that will be a really fun portion. I really like that one. You start to really emotionally see the language of oh, this is dominant in frame. Oh, this is dominant now in frame. Okay, oh, that's with the blocking, we can see the dialogue and we see the people physically mirroring it. We'll teach you how to like create interesting compositions. We'll teach you how to be in choice around how you frame, why you would frame it, and how that drives the story forward. Okay. Then we're going to get into camera movement, right? And we live in an age where there's a lot of different types of movements. We got production value on film sets is better than it's ever been. We have more tools, more sliders, more jib arms, more handheld gimbals. So we live in an age where sometimes people really don't know why they're moving the camera, but just because they can. So we're going to teach you how and when to choose the camera movements. And we're going to teach you what a motivated camera move looks like, right? And we'll teach you at moments where you can do slow creep ins that are almost unnoticeable, but it really creates a little more intimacy, right? We'll teach you not to get locked into certain zones. A lot of people work in certain three heights that they're really common, and those usually work to camera on shoulder, camera on the sticks, and people get locked into those a lot, and people compose from that a lot. So we'll teach you how to choose your height and why, where you put the camera and what it does to the effect of the thing, and how to make a much more interesting establishing shot, how to approach architecture, how to approach large objects, how to make them look dynamic. So, and then we're going to look at a short film, and it has a lot of these elements all in it. And then we're going to analyze the emotions of that short film. So we're going to teach you how to look at something, how to look at where the lighting is, how to be able to recreate it. And we'll look at some lighting plots. And that's pretty much the course. We'll do a little Q&A, and that's the 2 days. So, Ed, what do you think? Should we, how are we on our time? We're at like 5 o'clock now.
Yep.
I think that was a good overview. Did we want to talk at all about the class, or do you feel like I should go into maybe talking about the lighting process briefly? What do you think?
I think you have a little time to go through that, and then I want to give people time to do some Q&A as well. So say another 5-10 minutes to go through some of that process, and then we can do some Q&A, and then we'll be out before the half hour.
Okay, great. All right, let me, so let's, I want to talk one thing about like what your outcomes and your goals would be for this lighting class. And that let's review that real quick. So one of the things I want people to walk away from the class is having an informed opinion, right, on both the technical and the aesthetics of the film process. I want people to be able to take a source reference and be able to extrapolate what the lighting is and be able to recreate that. That comes in handy both on video walls when you have to match the video. What is the lighting in the wall giving us? And now I have to recreate that in the room. It helps you on green screens. I'll teach you how to kind of like annotate a lighting plot so that if you're doing a green screen shoot or a video wall shoot, and then you have to give the data to someone else who will be doing something in CG, I'll show you how you can communicate amongst the teammates what your lighting is. And I want you to have a working understanding of the film terms and how to translate those. I want you to have a very specific process. I want you to have the toolbox that when you go to it, you're just like, here's how I do it. We're going to be able to teach you how to troubleshoot your problems, right? And sometimes the problem can be in lighting. Sometimes the problem's in their blocking. Sometimes your problem isn't lighting. It's that you don't have a shadow where you need a shadow, right? And we'll teach you how to kind of like, oh, here's some problems. Tell me what's wrong with this image. How would you improve it, right? And the main thing is, I want you to be able to integrate or recreate any lighting setup that you see. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the lighting process. Let me get down to let me scroll through my notes here for a second, and I want to like start talking about like the types of lighting that you're going to do. So, The first thing you want to do is you want to block, and there's things you look for in blocking, right? There's a lot of problems that can be solved in the blocking phase. The first thing is your blocking seeks to create depth when you're doing it right. So a lot of times you'll have the foreground, and you'll have a midground, and you have a background. So sometimes your blocking has the two characters too close to the back wall, right? And one of the solutions in blocking is moving them further away from the back wall, right? So the blocking will solve it. You won't be able to get a light where you want a light because there's a wall there, right? And by changing where your blocking is and moving your camera angle, you can create depth, as opposed to something that's just too flat, and then we'll teach you how to make it dynamic and engaging. So that's one of the things. And then when we move on to the lighting process, you want to begin with an intention for the lighting setup. So when you sit down, you're like, what am I lighting? And what is it? Morning? Is it daytime? What part of the world are we in? Are we in southern sunny California? We have that kind of beautiful light that comes in. Are we in Canada on an overcast winter day, right? And those different questions will inform you of what you're going to be creating, right? And they should always be in service of the script. So, you look at the script and you look at what those are, and then you think about what like the motions of those should be, right? All right, and that's sort of like you assess the circumstances, right? And then are we indoor? Are we outdoor? What's the tone of the project we're working on? Are we doing a horror film? Are we doing a romantic comedy? Right? And there's certain conventions that those genres lean themselves towards a difference in lighting, right? And you can make choices too. You can go with a genre, you can go counter to the genre to create tension, right? But we'll make that a choice. We won't let you accidentally light something that's out in the wrong direction, right? So, the next step is you pick your key light, and you can choose the key light from a lot of different places. Right now on film sets, you'll see a rear side key, and that's really popular right now. The reason that's popular is cinematography goes through phases. In the 70s, cinematography was very natural, right? They loved the natural look. And you look at the aesthetic of the 1970s, it was like, blemishes are beautiful. Freckles are gorgeous, natural hair, kind of tangled and messy, right? And then you get into the 80s and it's like, the style is very box-like, the, bright, solid colors. And, you see the style move. And the cinematography started using video. So video needed a lot of flat lighting to look good. So you saw a lot of lighting changes then. And lighting got very soft and very frontal and very, very that. Now we have really good camera sensors and we have really good lenses. And they allow for a nuance of lighting that you could not have gotten away with as easily in, like, say, the 90s. So, and we have better feedback tools on set where you can see what you're doing so much better. We have full color screens showing us what we're lighting. When I started out in the early 90s, we'd have these little black and white video boxes that was a tap off of the camera. So you couldn't even see the color, intensity or anything. You just basically see composition. So nowadays, because of that, rear key lighting will really put beautiful edges along the jaw line, and it'll show the skin tone. And then camera side will have a lot of shadow because if the key light's behind the rear side, and it'll put detail, and the sensors now can see all the little details. So it makes for really beautiful lighting. So, I can show you what rear key lighting is. I can show you what beauty lighting is, where you're looking at light straight forward. And so, you pick the key light. And then I can show you how we add a fill light. One of the things I learned from working with some of the high-end stills people that I've done, I worked at Milk Studios. I got hired as their film lighting person. They would do these campaigns where they would have stills images and they would want some film components to it. So they would have the stills people light a set, and then I would have to come in with my film lights, which are very different sensor, very different power, and I'd have to match those. So the beauty of that, though, was I got to work with some of the world's best stills photographers, and I got to steal some of their great techniques for how they do lighting setups. And in a stills world, you spend 12 hours lighting one frame, which is beautiful that you get to do that in stills. In film, we never get to do that. We're doing 20, 30 setups a day. So, but their techniques are useful to us, and especially when you're working alone in Unreal Engine. And well, one of the things that I like to do is I show you how to set the key light, and then we set the fill light. You can turn the key light off. And a lot of people don't do that when they're lighting. A lot of people get into Unreal Engine, they turn on a light, they turn on another light, they don't move the first light, they try and solve the problem by adding a second light. But every time you turn on a new light, you're adding a new problem. You're causing double shadows. You're now having to control 3 lights instead of 2 lights, right? And they just suddenly, it turns into a soupy mess, and they got stuff on the background, and they haven't added any solids or any kind of cuts and shapes to it, and it's a mess. So the first thing you do is, if you ever find yourself in a corner, start turning lights off one at a time and keep turning them off. And if you don't notice much about what they're adding, just turn it off. Go back to the basics. So in my process, what I teach is find your key light, turn it off. Find your fill light. See where you want that half stop down, gentle light, right? Then you turn the key on and the fill light on at the same time, and you look at how they play together. But that technique of looking at only the light that you're interacting with in that moment really teaches your eye which thing each light is doing. And that's so important. You really want to know, I'm dark on this side. When the key light's on, I've got a really hard side key because I'm doing something dramatic and I have no data here. And then you turn that off, and then you add the fill light, and the fill light catches here and wraps around a little bit, but you're like, oh, okay, it's bleeding over onto this side, making that too bright. Okay, I'm going to keep moving my fill light till it's playing just the shadow side. Okay, and I like this character to have more of a shadow, but I want to see just his eye. So I'm going to diagonal it. Okay, now that's the fill light doing that. Now you turn the key light on, this side is illuminated, and now you got just a little hint of that light, but you know what each light's doing. So then you can turn that one off, and then we go for the top light if the top light is called for, and do some edge lights, right? And I think that's a good overview of how I approach a lighting setup, for a intro video like this, And then in the course, of course, we'll tell you why the back edge light will define you against the background when you're working with a green screen. We'll go into all those kind of nuances, and we'll teach you where to put a light to solve problems that you're having.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Wolfie. That was a really great run through and an intro, and some great content. Yeah, thanks very much for sharing that. We've got a couple of questions coming here. So from Libor, he asked, who and what dictate the style? Cinematographers, or is the audience, or is it technology?
Oh, it's a great question. That's a great question. So it depends what your project is, right? So, on a film set, the 3 big power positions are the producer, the director, and the director of photography. And the producer hires the below the line people and knows who the talented people are there. The director hires the cast and does the creative direction of the piece. And the cinematographer sits between the two and helps midwife the vision of the director. So ultimately, it's the director of the project. And now that might be the video game director. That might be, on a film set, it would be the actual director of the short film or the movie, right? And then the cinematographer would have conversations pulling out data from the director, right? And you want to like ask them emotional questions. You want to ask them time of day, feeling. Do I want to feel warm and safe in this location? Do I want to feel a little scared? Do I want one of the characters to have comfort and power and the other character to feel discomfort and that kind of thing? So, you know, you can see things like there's great examples like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, right? I day played on that in the lighting department, and it was really interesting because they would the cinematographer chose the bad guy would have hard light on certain parts of his face, and the Romulan ship had a green tone to the room. So then they had like green hue that sat in the perfect spot, right? But you know, like the lighting was beautiful, but it was a little harsh. And he's our bad guy. And when you'd see him, it was a little bit like, you know, and that lighting gave you clues to the character. You know, then you get to the Enterprise, and the lighting is a little more egalitarian, you know, and the lighting is even on both the captain and on the lieutenants, you know. And there was in the Romulan ship, it was very hierarchical. You know, the spotlight was on our bad guy. And in the background, they had just, you know, less light. So you got to see like, you know, the arrogance of the one starship captain and the more, you know, butting heads, but equal terms with the crew on that. So I think that's kind of like where those kind of lighting questions come in. You know, it's like, it's really, you know, you never want to have the technology drive your art. Your art drives the technology. And if there's something with the technology that's lacking, find a way around it. You know, Ed's great at inventing things. You know, like if you have to, you know, have a spinning object, right? We'll show you how to make a shadow object that's a grip object that will simulate light coming from things that are off screen. And those are techniques for how you make an environment come alive with light and shadow. You actually can use it to suggest larger set pieces that aren't even there or are not even created.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about the cinematography class that you have coming up. I've already kind of mentioned it, but just really to mention the special offer that we have running today, which is $100 off. We are going to be going through 2 great weekend workshops. We have 4-hour sessions like this, very interactive, people being able to ask questions, jump in, and learn way deeper into what we've been talking about today. We have as I said, we have a special offer for 24 hours, gives you $100 off. The regular price for the course is $347. Today, the $100 off, it's $247. So we're going to drop these links into the chat in a second. But if you would like to follow and join us for the next 2 weekends, we're starting this Saturday, and we're going to be running for 2 weeks in a row. So it'll be this Saturday and next Saturday. So if you would like to go through a workshop with Wolfie and myself as well, following up with the Unreal flavor in the background, then we'd love to have you join us. I am going to drop the link for that in the chat in a second. I also wanted to take a minute to just to highlight the
so the 8-week course.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and do a screen share of this.
The 8-week course is really, really amazing. You know, my 2-day course will give you a process for lighting and it will give you a process for composition. But if you're really thinking about moving into the Unreal Engine space and you're thinking about it as a career option, I highly, highly, highly recommend taking the 8-week course, because that 8-week course will produce results that make you hireable, right? So I have so many different projects that are calling for Unreal Engine artists right now. I mean, like I've got 4 different slots right now that Ed and I are working on. All right, who's good in the classes? Who can we send over to where? Like, there's a lot of work out there right now, and it's only going to get bigger the more Unreal Engine 5 drops. So this is the perfect first step. But you're also not just getting a course, right? You're getting somebody who's going to be helping you further in your career. You know, our training courses don't just stop at the end of the class. You know, we'll help you get to the next step. We'll help you figure out where you need to strengthen if you need to strengthen, and we'll help you on your way.